with family and friends. My name is Nat Natraj. I'm the co-founder CEO of AccuKnox. I'm delighted to have my co-founder CTO Rahul Jadhav. Rahul is quite a technical guru, and I'm looking forward to this fireside chat. And I'm confident that all of you will find it extremely engaging, very interesting, very informative. Rahul, we've seen multiple technology waves, right? We've lived through the client server, then the mobile, then the cloud. Uh, Now we are seeing AI LLM wave, and each wave has been at least 10x of the previous one. This certainly seems like a tsunami, right? And we are seeing enormous benefits, but we've all been through enough of these new technologies where if it's not properly used, if it's not properly secured, it can have some very significant damage, right? So we know the at a high level, I'm talking about the Wall Street Journal, New York Times front page level, the challenges in AI LLM. We'd love to get your thoughts on what was the eureka moment for you to think about Equinox AI SPM. Was there one event or a series of sort of happenings which led you to build it? We'd love for you to tell us more about it. And we're all yours. Rahul,
Thank you.
take it.
Thank you, Nat. Thank you. Excited to be here. Yes, that's absolutely right, right? Like we are riding a big AI LLM wave. Fundamentally, the architectures are changing under the hood. We are going prompt first. We are going ID first environments as well, right? Like when we are when we are riding on this wave, I feel from the security perspective, a lot of things are fundamentally changing in the sense that how the security risks are perceived. Uh, Frankly speaking, for us, for AccuKnox, the journey began when we started working on our own copilot, right? Like we have all the security data that is coming in from different tenants. We wanted to ensure that we can leverage that tenant specific data and make it available to large language models, and we help customers use that data in a very customized way, so that they can answer their own queries. But when we are dealing with such solutions, we ourselves being a security company, we found that when you're integrating with this kind of AI LLM solutions, and you're exposing your internal data to these large language models, there are inherent security risks that you have to basically take care of. And that's where our thought process started, right? Like we built our own copilot, we exposed the tenant specific information to those copilot, but at some point in time we say, we cannot make it production ready unless and until we solve the security issues. So that started the flywheel effect, I would say. And then we had several design partners. If you ask me what are the top three risks that they have voicing the concerns about, is the number one being their organization users are using Gen AI systems and they're pushing in information to these Gen AI systems, large language models. They're concerned that some of this internal information gets pushed to the large language models. They're very much concerned about it. Now, in some cases, organizations have taken a on-prem first model, which does take care of alleviating some of these risks, but not all, because you within the organizations you have different departments. You can't expose all the data that you have in the large language model consistently across all the departments, and so on and so forth, right? Like there are huge security risks within the organization itself. So the users of the Gen AI pushing their information or inadvertently feeding sensitive data to the AI systems, and we have seen breaches already happening in this context, right? Like where Samsung had their employees pushing in their internal sensitive code to Chat GPT, and these kind of issues we keep seeing more often than not, right? Like the second point is, obviously every organization wants to train a large language model which is very contextual. The same was the case in our case as well, right? Like where we wanted to make sure that the large language models are so contextual in the context of the problem statement that we have, that we want to feed in the data. And when we feed in the data, we have to make sure that the prompt injection attacks doesn't cause that data to be leaked. So the sensitive data that is fed to the large language model, so this is the second risk that I have seen getting voiced more often. And the third one, I haven't seen directly getting voiced, but anyone who is actually a developer of an AI application, they know or the security team knows that in a lot of these cases, their AI developers are leveraging models that are fundamentally untrusted, in the sense that they're pulling in models from public large language model repositories such as Hugging Face, and not all of these models have guardrails built into it. How do you ensure that their AI developers pull in the large language models which are secure, or the security team has the ability to say that you can confidently go ahead and make use of this large language models, or it is better to stay away from these set of models, right? Like something like that. So these are the three problem statement that I have seen over the course of my discussions with the customers. But yeah, again, the field is wide open out there.
Rahul, there are people, there are billion-dollar companies like Google, Microsoft, AWS, and the AI platform providers like OpenAI, Anthropic, and the like. So clearly, they're worried about this thing. So, what problems are they solving, and what are the problems over and beyond that that you're imagining and solving that turns into value for customers?
Yeah. The large language models producers are ensuring that they are training their large language models in the context of a specific problem statement. Now, for example, if you look at Anthropic Cloud models, right, like they are specifically geared towards solving code generation problems, solving general desktop related problems where the user is seen as a desktop user, or as an application developer, and is interacting with the large language models, versus OpenAI is a more generalized view. So every model has its own pros and cons in the context. One of the things that I have seen in most of these hosted providers, that they have anticipated some of the problems, in the sense that they have anticipated that users are going to push in prompts which they are not supposed to do. How would they have internally built guardrails into their systems itself? Not all of them. For example, I know for sure that the kind of guardrails that are present on OpenAI are different from what the guardrails are present in DeepSeek. So by experimentation, the team internally has found out that DeepSeek doesn't have guardrails in specific code execution attacks, right? Like where you can manipulate the prompts in such a way that DeepSeek will actually execute code in the backend. So things like that.
Rahul, a picture is worth 1,000 words, nothing like a demo. And would love for you to give people sort of a thumbnail taste of what the AI security journey is, right? If I'm starting from scratch, uh, where would I start? And every security is more a journey, not a destination. Starting from, as I say, you cannot secure what you don't see. So starting from visibility, all the way to compliance, right? Would love for you to share with us what the journey looks like.
Absolutely. And here I'm sharing my screen. I hope you can see it.
Yes,
Okay.
I can.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem statement starts with visibility. In every case, in every security problem statement, right? Like the problem always starts with the lack of visibility, where with cloud security, be it container security, you need to have visibility into what's happening under the hood. What are the data models? In the context of AI ML security, most of the organization wants to ensure that they understand which models are currently deployed in their organizations, what kind of data sets are getting leveraged by which training jobs, and then what are the models that are generated by those training jobs. That visibility is something that most of the organization look forward to, and the ability to get that kind of visibility across cloud platforms is a big plus. So that's what we have been focusing our energies towards. uh, the ability to get visibility across AWS, GCP, Azure, kind of environments. We are also targeting on-prem deployments, but when it comes to on-prem deployments, the problem becomes extremely difficult, where it's a fragmented deployments. You can have PyTorch, TensorFlow, Qflow. There's so many serving engines that are available out there, so it becomes a lot of there's a lot of noise out there, frankly speaking. So targeting AWS, SageMaker, Bedrock, GCP, Azure, uh, managed deployments gives you much better visibility. But of course, the cost of using those systems results in customers moving towards on-prem deployments. So on-prem deployments also have to be, at some point in time, taken into consideration. And there are a lot of environments out there who might not be in a position to actually deploy it in the managed cloud provider space, right? Like they might not be comfortable using SageMaker or Bedrock for that matter for large language models. So you have to take care of on-prem deployment. So lack of visibility. The second part is misconfigurations, of course. Once you have the asset inventory, so to speak, the obvious next step is to understand what kind of misconfigurations are there out of the box, right? Like every AI ML models are expected to have are expected to follow certain security best practices. Just to give a simple example, right? Like your predictive ML models should not be using certain experimental operators from the inference engines. Those kind of best practices are very easy to identify using, by scanning Keras, Pickle, or TensorFlow models, right? It's very straightforward to identify those, and you'll often be surprised as to a lot of times the AI developers might not be considering such kind of risks at all. So that's
Great.
point number one. This the third part obviously is the AI model vulnerabilities itself, and towards this, what is typically required is it possible to do some sort of automated red teaming, especially on the large language models, where you want to check whether the large language models have the requisite guardrails in place. So that's where a third, that's the important piece, where you check whether it is prone to prompt injection attacks, whether it is prone to code malware payload generation attacks and things like that, right? Like the set of probes that you can actually write on top of these kind of automated red teaming frameworks. Fourth is data security risks. Now, there are so many data security risks that I can think of. One is data poisoning, where you have training jobs, which is leveraging your own internal data sets and someone poisoning those data sets. Two, ensuring that the data sets itself do not have any PIIs or PHI information. All of this, the ability to scan data sets, JSONs, which would be in several gigabytes to terabytes in size, for such kind of uh, risks, right? Like is an immense and very important task. And once you have all these findings, checks, and balances in place, the last or the final, the output of all of this is the compliance or the governance aspect, right? Like which everything culminates into the compliance part, where at the end of the day, the security team wants to see, are we compliant to a particular framework? This is the best benchmark or the yardstick that they can check about, right? Like, so these are essentially the problem statements that we're solving with the AI security posture management we have.
Great. Great. Fantastic. And give us a thumbnail of the solution, and then would love to
Yeah.
see a demo.
Yeah. So let me just at this point, right, get into the actual solution itself. So what I'm showing you here is the simplicity. So this from AccuKnox perspective, we had the full Synapse solution. So in a lot of these cases, in a lot of AI ML deployments, you have to take into consideration both the AI ML risks as well as the infrastructure risk, right? The infrastructure risk could be from the container images that are deployed to compute instances that are used, and everything in between, right? Like from the infrastructure perspective, you have to take those into consideration as well. And then you have AI ML specific risks that you might want to take into consideration. The beauty about scanning the managed cloud providers is that the only thing that you have to do is, apart from scanning the cloud assets, you can now scan the AI ML assets and get the visibility. In this context, you see a dashboard which shows applications. I'll come back to what applications mean. Models, datasets, compute instances. What are the deployed models? What are the undeployed models? How many of those models are large language models? How many of those are ML models? How many of those have been customized by by the developers within that organization? And then, all sorts of issues that are reported by category, right? Like how many of them suffer from hallucination, prompt injection attacks, malware code generation attacks, and sentiment analysis, and so on and so forth. The interesting part about applications, right? Like with the ability to map together an application, which means that there is a model, there is an endpoint which is serving that particular model, and the ability to show the security team that these are the models which are actually deployed and running, where users can send the prompts, is a big value add. That's basically what we are achieving. And then the ability to achieve this across all of your cloud platforms, which means that you can check across my cloud inventory, how many models am I actually serving at any given point in time. So this is the view that you get. Let me just quickly dive deeper into this view, where you'll see a lot of large language models and some of the ML models also that are deployed. Let me click on one of the large language models. What happens is that you immediately get uh, so this large language models, this is a foundational model from Amazon Bedrock. This is already part of the if you have Amazon Bedrock, if you use Amazon models, Titan Text G1 Lite is one of the Amazon model that is present out there. And you see, right, like even for the foundational model which is already present in there as part of the model garden from Amazon, you see that there are risks out there that are open. Here we have enlisted, we have done the probing of those, we have done automated red teaming of those models, and we have found out these are the issues that are present, where the model suffers from attacks where the model will actually respond to queries which wherein the users will ask for generating a malware payload, right, like, and things, so on and so forth. So typically if you do the same thing on certain mature models, or so as to so to speak, such as OpenAI or Anthropic Cloud, you will see that the responses, you will not get any responses, or you'll get a response saying you're not supposed to do this. So that's basically the difference, right? Like, as a security team, you need to be aware as to what models are deployed. Now here's a common view, right, like where you see the risks in the context by areas. Then there is a pipeline view, as you can see here, where you see the foundational models been deployed. Where is it deployed? What is the actual endpoint on which it is deployed, where the users are accessing those foundation models? The same thing you can see in the context of ML models as well. For example, let me go to one of the ML models, right, like, and show you the kind of visibility that you might get. So this is an ML model. The risk in the context of ML models are different. I mentioned previously that certain experimental operators should not be used in the context of production environment. So those are some of the risks that are depicted here. But when it comes to the pipeline based view, you can see what data sets. So this is the data set which is actually hosted on S3 bucket, is exposed to this particular training job, and this training job in turn results in this particular SageMaker model, and this model is part of this region, is part of this cloud account. So you get this full risk view in the context of your cloud environment.
This is
Uh,
amazing. Mhm.
the ability to show this consistently across most of the cloud providers. So currently I have most of my applications deployed on Amazon. I think there's one application deployed on Azure, and then there's one on GCP. There are two on GCP, but there are five models in the context. Yeah, so the ability to do this in multi-cloud environment is the real value add. Yeah,
This is,
the, yeah,
yeah, this is amazing. How about uh, at the end of the day, compliance is a very important aspect, just like we go through SOC compliance, ISO compliance ourselves, and every one of our clients, that's a very important imperative.
yeah. Yeah. So it's a very important imperative, I would say, for most of our customers as well. For example, let me just remove the goals, show you all the issues in the context. Uh, and what happens typically is that what we were able to do is map each of these findings in the context of compliance framework. So you can see Avid getting mapped, OS top 10 for LLMs getting mapped. So in general, if you ask me, Nat, there are two types of compliance frameworks that I'm seeing today, and most of the most popular ones are one is in the context of organizations, for example, ISO 42001. There are attack frameworks and compliance frameworks, right? The attack frameworks such as OS top 10, MITRE Atlas, Avid, all of these gives you a way to check what kind of attack surfaces exist out there. From the compliance perspective, there are two types of compliance frameworks that I'm seeing. One is from the organization perspective, such as ISO 42001, and then there are what I would say is governmental compliance frameworks. For example, if you have if you are operating in European region, then you need to satisfy EU AI Act. If you are operating in OECD environments, you have OECD AI framework that you have to comply towards. In fact, UNESCO has come up with its own AI ethics framework as well. So more and
Correct.
more organizations are coming up with their own frameworks. When it comes to ISO 42001, uh, let me stop sharing. So when it comes to ISO 42001, there are essentially, four types of things that ISO 42001 checks for. One is the AI management systems, which means that do you have a solution which can show visibility, right? Like do you have a solution which can give visibility into uh, the models that are deployed, the data sets that are deployed, who is having access to what data sets, who's deployed, which models are
Correct.
actually deployed, and all those things. So that's the
Correct.
management perspective, governance perspective from the organization perspective. The second aspect, Nat, is the AI risk assessment. Do you have a mechanism to assess the risk in the context of the AI solutions that you are deploying? The third thing in the context, now I'm talking about this in the context of ISO 42001. The third is in the context of AI impact assessment, where if something goes wrong, do you know what is the impact to your organization, to the given organization? And the fourth is data protection and data protection security in general. So that's a separate this thing. So ISO 42001 is more geared towards organizational AI deployments. UAI Act and most of the other things are more focused towards end user, where how do they protect end users' privacy when they are interacting with the Gen AI systems, right? Like that's what their primary concerns are. So we, from AccuKnox perspective, we take care of both of these compliance needs. The ability for us to actually have view across all the models, data sets, with the ability to do red teaming, the ability to
Yeah,
understand the
Rahul,
risk.
tell us more about the red teaming. That's always a challenge and an opportunity, right? Our clients have difficulty getting really good red teamers, and if they find one, it's very expensive, and you end up doing it once a year, which is almost defeats the purpose, right? How do we do
Yeah.
continuous red teaming, CTEM? Yeah.
Correct, correct. CTEM again, I would say, CTEM is a fundamental concept. It's getting more momentum these days because of Gartner invented this term, which is great actually. Uh, but every organization goes for VAPT or some sort of pen testing before they decide on their security strategy. This is AI is no different, right? Like at some point in time, the organizations are going to call in pen testers or red teamers to assess the security risks, and the ability to do that out of the box periodically in a continuous fashion is immensely helpful, because now you don't have to wait for an external event to actually showcase the risk that you might have. So automated red teaming definitely is a big value out for any organization.
Great, great. Hey, thank you, Rahul. We've got 9 more minutes. We want to be respectful of everybody's schedule. After a long 3 day weekend in the US, I'm sure everybody's schedules are a little bit packed. Beyond where we are, agentic is clearly where the world is going, right?
Yeah,
That is supposed to be a game changer, like, almost humanity has not seen, right? And again, that opens up a whole bunch of opportunities for sure and challenges. Can you take us through the challenges and how we plan to address that?
absolutely. When it comes to agentic AI, I think the opportunities are immense, and already organizations are pouncing on this opportunity, including us, right? Like including AccuKnox, where we are deploying MCP servers, where end users can actually integrate with those MCP servers and get data within that IDs itself. The same is true. I yesterday saw an MCP server from Atlassian, where you can actually not go to the Jira dashboards and things like that. You can just ask questions, like you converse with the solution now. That's the prompt first model is what we are seeing getting deployed, and MCP servers, agentic AI are the primary tools towards those models. The security risks are immense, and again, OASP has done a great job in terms of identifying, doing the threat modeling, and identifying the threats and mitigation aspects of agentic AI. I would certainly encourage everyone to look at the OASP AI threat modeling and mitigation aspects. Uh, the the ability to the ability for the agentic AI to execute an external tool provides immense power to the agentic AI. At the same time, it's all sorts of risks that are possible, right? Like I mentioned before, that you can bypass prompt prompts prompt you can always bypass the prompt guardrails that you have in place. Prompt guardrails are put in place using a probabilistic model. So as an organization, you have to think from two perspectives. Do you have some basic guardrails that are in place, but under the hood you have to still think about, hey, what happens if an attacker manages to bypass these guardrails? because that's going to happen. Eventually it's going to happen if the attacker is keeps at it. At that particular time, you have to ask a question: do you have a solution which is least permissive? Essentially, a zero trust model is something that will play a big deal even in the context of agentic AI solution, where you define an agentic AI solution and say that my agentic AI solution is supposed to do X, Y, and Z. Ensure that only X, Y, Z is allowed and everything else is denied. Those kind of models is something that eventually I feel will be useful in the context of agentic AI system as well. For example, uh, there is an agentic AI application which generates dashboards at runtime. You know, to generate a dashboard, you call a large language model, get an auto-generated code, you execute that code, get the dashboard, widgets generated, and you put those widgets in the dashboard. Amazing application, user-defined dashboards you can create out of this. Brilliant, right? Like, but essentially, what you're allowing the agentic AI system to do is execute arbitrary code based on the prompts from users, and that basically is a big attack surface. So if you don't have multi-level security where you say, hey, I have these guardrails in place, but under the hood I need the guardrails below as well, where I can say I can put things into least permissive mode. That's the ultimate nirvana system to have.
Yeah, fantastic. Hey, there's a question in the chat board. Question is: does AccuKnox plan to incorporate LLMs, the data protection, uh, anomaly detection? Is that a part of our roadmap?
Absolutely, it is. I mean, there is no part of the roadmap that is not touched by AI today. Absolutely everything, including remediation, prioritization, toxic combination identification, uh, graph analysis. All of this is going to be touched by this thing. Data protection even more so, because typically, right, like traditionally we have seen regex based models being used to identify PIs and PHIs, and we have seen several limitations with those kind of models, right? Like where if an organization decides to keep the data in some other format, then it becomes difficult for a scanner to identify these kind of PIs and PHIs. AI system can fundamentally help in this context, and I feel already they are making a big change, big wave. Uh, Absolutely, it is possible to use AI based system to do better data protection, better anomaly detection. Anomaly detection has been a topic of interest for the past 25 years, I guess, if not more.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that's something that predictive ML had already been doing, but Gen AI offers a different way of handling it as well. So
Correct.
absolutely, it's going to.
And other question which just came up was, can we orchestrate this from an ML or Kubeflow, Run.ai, some of these frameworks?
Yes, yes, yes. Every security solution eventually has to move left if it has to identify the least permissive model, if it has to actually alert the user that, hey, uh, this is changing, and when you are going to deploy this new agentic AI application, this has to be deployed along with the new agentic AI applications. Yes, so the with frameworks such as NVIDIA NEMS, Run.ai, AWS Strands, you have this ability where now it's a managed framework where you know exactly how things move between the entities. Now you can put in a checklist, checkpoints at intermediate levels and do. For example, an auto-generated code can be put through a SaaS security scanning tool. A simple solution, but it's a very effective solution. The auto-generated the code can be put through a static scanning tool, and then check whether it has obvious security issues or no. And if it has, then you prompt the user accordingly. So all those things, absolutely. I feel if you move towards left, if you integrate natively as part of some existing ecosystem players, users are the ones who eventually benefit, because now you have less knobs to take care of. Under the hood you have most of the controls in place already, uh, and you have fundamentally secure architecture by design, right? Like that's basically what everyone is aiming for.
Great. Hey, Rahul, we've got one more minute. Assuming the audience tuned out for the last 29 minutes, right? In 1 minute, what are the top three reasons why they should care about AccuKnox AI SPM?
Yeah. So the most important thing is the ability to get visibility, the ability to do automated red teaming, and then after all these findings and checks, you need compliance and remediation and prioritization at the end of the day. So do this through a single framework. This is what AccuKnox provides, uh, and that's what the organization would care for, right? Like that's what most of the organizations today are suffering from.
Thank you very much, Rahul. As always, in every meeting I have with you, I gain a lot of insights, a lot of information, and really, really appreciate the nuggets of wisdom. I'd like to thank the audience for making 30 minutes of their very busy schedule. Really, really appreciate it. Now, I'd like to pass the baton to the organizers. Syed, take it away.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Have a wonderful day. Have a great short week ahead. Really appreciate all of your time.